Lars arrives at the hotel where he will be staying for his weekend conference. He reserved the room online based on photos from the website, which showed clean, well-furnished rooms, and in the text on the website it also said there was a cool bar. Lars immediately goes directly to the hotel bar to rinse the palate after some stressful hours on the road. Unfortunately, he's less than impressed by what he sees. The bar is so far from the sophisticated style he saw on the website, and when he later arrives for happy hour, the music is horrible and too loud. It's not at all the quality he expected. Customers like Lars have a certain anticipation of the experience they'll get when they have ordered a particular hotel, booked a given trip, or otherwise made a purchase from various types of businesses. When these expectations don't match the way they experience or perceive the service, one or more gaps are developed. Therefore, it's important for the employees and managers of the company to try and minimize the difference between the expectations and the actual delivery of a service product. The gap model was developed in the 80s by the three researchers Valerie Seidhammer, Parasuraman and Leonard Barry as a very manageable tool to analyze how a company's service quality is delivered in relation to the customer's wants and needs. Making a gap analysis, you use the ServQual questionnaire, which is a contraction of the words service and quality. ServQual uses the customer's expectations and the customer experience or perception of service quality to help companies to identify areas to improve. It is therefore a visualization of the gaps there may be between what the customer expects to receive in relation to a service and what the customer believes he gets. ServQual is based on some dimensions within the service. These include tangibles. This is the stuff you can see, touch, or observe, such as facilities, staff, and equipment. Reliability. Are you able to deliver the promised service reliably and accurately? Responsiveness. This is the speed and effectiveness of your customer service. Assurance. Do your employees have the knowledge and courtesy to create trust and credibility? And empathy, your ability to show consideration and empathy for the customer. Whilst constructing their model, the researchers identified 5 gaps where businesses and consumers have mismatched expectations, which may cause customer service problems. Let me tell you a bit more about the gap model. The gap model is used to identify and close gaps between customer expectations and the services that are actually provided in different phases. The goal is to improve service quality. Here's a look at the 5 gaps they identified. The listening gap, which is also called the knowledge gap, is the gap that may arise between the management of a given company's understanding of client needs and the customer's actual needs. The gap often occurs when the company lacks sufficient analysis of the target group. The design and standards gap is the gap which occurs between the management's perception of customers' expectations and how this knowledge will be translated into a service design. This means that there is a gap if the business or organization does not correctly identify what the customer wants or needs. In the example with the bar, it might be that management has put more emphasis on an impressive facade and beautiful rooms, whereas the customers focus more on the style of the bar and extra services such as happy hour. The performance gap, or delivery gap as it is also called, is a gap that may arise between service standards and procedures laid down by the management on the basis of customer expectations and how they are actually executed. One example is the lack of training of staff to handle customer needs. When Lars in the example showed his irritation at the bar, staff could not handle them in an efficient and professional manner. A communication gap occurs when a company promises something that raises consumer expectations and then not being able to keep that promise. This results in disappointed customers who then perhaps seek a product elsewhere. The external communication must also be clearly communicated to all employees so that they know what the company promised and so they themselves comply with the communication. Lars's perception of the online advertising of the hotel as a whole did not match what he experienced when he arrived at the hotel. The customer gap, also sometimes called the customer service quality gap, is a gap that relates to the customer's expectations and perceptions. The customer gap is the difference between the customer's expectations of service quality and his experience, and thus the perception of service quality. In Lars's case, the elegant cocktail bar with fancy drinks he expected when he entered the bar was not quite the experience he got. Expectations of a company's service quality arise partly from recommendations from friends and acquaintances, but also from the wants and needs you yourself have for the product. They may also arise from previous purchases in the company or similar businesses, and also the company's marketing, both on the web and all sorts of other places, create some expectations. The only thing the company is in control of regarding the customer gap is marketing. In order to be able to close the customer gap, the company needs to understand and define the customer expectations, so the expectations can be understood by the entire company, from those who develop service design and marketing materials to staff members who deliver the service. It sometimes seems the negative experiences are better stuck in our memory, and in fact there are many who believe that the public Danish railway is usually late. However, the fact is that over 90% of the time it's running exactly according to schedule. There is research showing that it takes as much as 20 positive experiences to offset one negative experience. Let's take a look at what you've learned about the gap model. The gap model helps companies and organizations to identify and solve customer service problems. Some key attributes that the model focuses on are reliability, assurance, tangibles, empathy, and responsiveness. The 5 identified gaps you see in this model consist of 1 consumer gap and 4 provider gaps. Provider gaps are imbalances that a service provider can actively work with in order to improve. The listening or knowledge gap, where the company has not correctly identified what the customer wanted. The design and standards gap, where the company does not correctly translate knowledge about the customer to the service design the customer needs. The performance gap, which is the gap between service quality expectations and the actual delivery. And the communication gap that occurs when a company promises something and then don't deliver. The customer gap is the gap between customer expectations and customers' perception or experiences. An understanding of these gaps enables a company to address deficiencies and improve processes and procedures.